Hi guys, this is Amma. Welcome to my video for my new PC build. I'm building a mid-range PC, gaming PC for myself, and I'm just gonna share this video with you of my PC build to support other people who might be thinking about actually building a PC for themselves. So I'm gonna start with the motherboard that I have selected. It is a Z97 Pro Gamer motherboard from ASUS, LGA 1150 socket, which will house my i5 4690 processor. This motherboard supports SLI and it is suitable for Windows 8.1, which is the operating system I'm planning to use. To go with that motherboard, I have decided to go on an 8 gig memory RAM from Corsair, 1600 megahertz speed, a SSD from SanDisk, and a Corsair CS750M modular power supply that will supply up to 750 watts of power to my system. And to help me with the cooling, I've decided to go for some Corsair SP140 fans, plus the ones that are coming with the case. And I will tell you a little bit more about the setup of the case in the video. And for the graphics card, I have selected the GeForce GTX 760 from ASUS, which is the Striker Platinum card. Okay, the first thing to do is to actually prepare the case for the build. You have to decide on a cooling system. I have decided to air cool my CPU and my graphics card, so I will not be doing any water cooling installation. So first thing I'm going to do is actually going to prepare the case and get it ready to install all my components. So there is actually a 140mm fan at the back as an exhaust. One I have situated at the top for extra ventilation, and there is a 140mm fan, two of them in fact, drawing air in from the front. If I just go at the front and pull the door open, you'll see that the fans are filtered, and if we remove the filter, there are 240 SP Corsair fans to draw in as much air as possible from the front. I am going for a positive air pressure in this build due to the fact that positive air pressure will give me a fairly dust-free PC inside. I'm not very fond of cleaning the insides of PCs, so I've left it to the positive airflow to actually exclude most dust. Now some people might prefer a negative airflow or just a neutral airflow. It is up to you to decide what is best for your system. If I've installed the drive cage, the good thing about this case is that it gives you an option of arranging however many ways you want to arrange a drive cage. In fact, completely removing a cage. Here's the cage that I have removed earlier on. I did not need that one because I'm only planning to have 2 hard drives and a SSD for my main build. These vents can be opened to house a few more fans, another 140 and another 140 here, or water cooling radiator fans, but I'm not going to be doing any of that, so that's for a future build that I might use this PC case for. Okay, so I'm ready to install my CPU. I have my CPU ready. This is the i5 4690 processor. First thing to do is to actually unlock the latch by pushing it down and moving it side to there and lifting it gently to expose the socket. Now, to get your CPU opened and not to touch it by the contact side, you open your CPU and there's a little golden triangle on the corner, and you have to match it to the triangle on that side. There is also a notch here and there to match to the socket on here. Gently locate your CPU in the corner, matching the corner up, and just dropping there. Give it a little bit of a wiggle to make sure that it has settled in. There's no need to remove the black plate. Slowly lower the making sure that this pin, this side of the locking arm goes under that pin, and then pressing down and locking the CPU. And what happens is that the protective cover automatically pops out. Now the next thing to do is to actually install the cooler. I am using a non-stock cooler. This is a well, it's not a very expensive one, but it is definitely a little bit bigger than the one that comes with the actual CPU. It comes with a pre-applied thermal compound. Just got to orient it the right way and match the holes to the motherboard and to the pins. Slowly lower it in position, lining up the pins. Right, opposite ends to lock in first. Next thing to do is to install the RAM. Now, according to the instruction manual of my motherboard, it says that I should use this lane and that lane for 2-stick memory. Now, you need to make sure that the notch here is matched up with the notch on the actual socket itself, so that you don't end up damaging your RAM, and line it up nicely. And this is a one-sided lock, so you insert the opposite end of the lock first, put it into position, apply pressure, and it should lock into position. And you should hear it click as it launches. Okay, now the other stick of RAM, which is on this slot here. Now you must refer to the motherboard instruction for your particular slots, because each motherboard recommends different slots depending on what your memory setup is. Okay, so that installs my RAM. 2 sticks of 4 GB each, a total of 8 GB RAM. Once you've installed the CPU fan, connected the CPU fan to the fan header and installed your RAM, your motherboard is actually ready for installation into your PC case. All we need to do now is to install the I/O shield in the PC case. Here's the I/O shield, and make sure that the standoff in the case are ready to receive your motherboard. Hey, I'm about to install my I/O shield into the case, so you just got to locate it where the I/O shield goes, line it up, making sure all the corners are lined up before you press in, not to damage the I/O shield. Press each corner in to make sure it is firmly in, and then the sides, so firmly pressed in, ready to receive the motherboard. Now the case is ready with the standoffs in the right places. It's a question of lifting the motherboard up and locating it into the right standoffs, but making sure that the I/O shield is actually lined up correctly. You might have to look behind and actually get it lined up properly. You might want to hold it by the CPU. There is a locating screw in the center to get it to sit. Just make sure that the I/O and everything is lined up properly. If it doesn't line up, you need to try again and get it lined up. Now here it is. The locating screw is over there, and it is now nicely lined up. Just get the motherboard screws into the relative positions. Do not over tighten them. Just pass snug is sufficient to hold the motherboard in place. The next thing to do is to actually install the power supply. I have the Corsair CS750 modular power supply. So the first thing to do is to actually line it up in the case like this. There will be screws to fit this on. There's some nice rubber pads to actually rest this on to stop it from vibrating and vibrational noise. Make sure all the cables are out of the way, and then screw that from the back with some screws. Just a question of lining up the screws and making sure that they're tight and snug, moving the power supply. So do the opposite corners first, just to make sure everything's nice and lined up. So now your power supply is installed. These are the 24-pin power supply to the socket and the 8-pin power supplies to the socket. We just need to feed them through the rubber grommet to make them go behind. I think we should start with this one first because it's a bit difficult to maneuver. Go to the other side and pull it through, and then feed the other cable through. They're going to reappear through here, the 24-pin here and the 8-pin right at the top of the motherboard. So you're just going to have to route the cables through to the back and all the way around. Okay, so fed the cable, the 8-pin power supply connector to the motherboard to the top rubber grommet. I just need to rearrange orient the cable so that it is actually just looped over and plugged into that socket. Now there is a little bit of slack onto that cable. Just need to orient it the right way and pop into the slot. Make sure it clicks into position. Okay, the next thing to do is to take the 24-pin connector and feed it through the closest rubber grommet to the actual connector, which is this one. You might have to move some of the older cables out of the way to be able to get to this. There's the 24-pin power cable, and you connect it to the socket right here. Now there is an extra set of pins on the side which you may or may not need depending on the setting of your motherboard. Just make sure it's the right one and put it on. The next thing to do is to actually collect all the system case header connectors, like the LED, hard drive LED, the power switch and the reset switch. All of them need to be connected to these pins here. Now you need to refer to your motherboard instruction manual to be able to tell which one is which, but most of them are labeled. This is the power LED, then you've got the reset switch, then we have the power switch, and then we have a HDD LED. All of them will be individually labeled, and the manual will tell you which pin to connect them in. So I'm just going to go ahead and write and connect them all, and then we'll move on to the next cable. Just to summarize, I've connected the 24-pin power supply to the motherboard, and I have also done the 8-pin power supply to the motherboard, and I've just connected the case connections, the HDD, LED, power switch, reset switch and all that. It is now connected, and at this point in time and the installation, I would recommend that you connect the power supply and actually try a post to see if the system is actually operational. In case there's anything wrong, you don't want to carry on with the project. You need to do a diagnostic to find out which part is not working properly, and then try and arrange for replacements. I have done the post and my system has posted, so now I'm going to just continue connecting up the rest of the parts. Okay guys, the next thing to connect is the HD audio connector, which goes right here on this particular motherboard. Again, the location differs a little bit from each motherboard to motherboard, but most motherboards have it right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect that. I've fed the cable back through the tray and throughout this gap here, just about enough room for it to actually sit there and get connected. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. There's only one way to connect that fan. There is actually one blocked off, so you will only be able to connect it in the right orientation as long as it's the right way around. Okay, so that connects the HD audio to the front phone headphone socket and the microphone socket. Okay guys, just to let you know that I have actually this has been pre-installed already. I have my mechanical hard drive, 2 of them that I'm recycling from my previous computers. They're both already in the cage. All I've got to do now is actually put in my SSD onto this caddy here, and then make the connections from the back to the power supply using the SATA Express power supply, and then we have the data connection, which is the SATA connection from there to the motherboard to the actual drives. I haven't yet installed the optical drive either, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so this is the SATA power cable. I've connected the drives up on the other end of the cable. There's two mechanical hard drive, one SSD. They've all been connected, and now this is just a question of just finding the connector here onto the back of the power supply for this modular power supply, and that connects the drives to the SATA power supply. So all our drives will be getting power from here. These are the SATA 3 data cables. one end goes to the motherboard here, and the other right angle board bit goes actually to the back of each drive. So now there are 3 drives, and I'm going to need 3 of these. They're going to be connected from these ports here and to the back of the drive, the SSD, the mechanical drive, and the optical drive. What I've done now is I've connected all the SATA connectors to the SATA ports. There are 4 SATA connectors, and the other end of these is actually on the SSD drive, the 2 mechanical hard drive, and the optical drive. They're all now connected to the SATA ports, just making sure that all the connections are right. You need to make sure that the SATA cables don't get undone. Sometimes when you're struggling to do the cable management or temporary cable management, they can become dislodged even though they have a lock. So make sure all your connections are secure. At the moment I have only connected the hard drives and the optical drive to the motherboard. So I'm going to go ahead and connect all the fans up. So I have 4 fans, one there, one there. These 2 will be exhaust fans, and there are 2 fans at the front which will be the intake fans. So the idea is that 2 of them will draw the air, one uninterrupted fan blowing air directly over the motherboard, the other one is blowing air through the drives, hopefully cooling the drives as well as building enough air pressure inside. The power supply has been put down with the fan intake at the bottom because this case supports a bottom filter all the way across. So the fan will draw cold air in from the bottom and exhaust at the back. Now you've got a choice. Either you can connect the control fan to the fan controller on the case. I'm not going to use the fan controller because I'm going to actually use the software from the BIOS of the motherboard to control the fan. So I'm going to connect all my fans to the actual motherboard itself. There are 4 fan headers on this motherboard up on top of the 2 CPU ones. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect those up. Once this is done, that's all basically my cables are connected. So it's a question of making sure that the graphics card in with the power supply to the graphics card routed in, and then we are actually done. Last stage of the build would be to actually sort out the cable management at the back. I'm just going to show you what the cable management looks like on the other side. So you can see that here, this is the back of the case. All the cables have been nicely tucked in. Now the good thing about this case is that it's got a very good cable management opportunity. So there is so many ways you can actually feed your cables through, and at the moment it is, well, it's not the best job in the world, but certainly neat at the back of the case. Okay, ready to install the graphics card. I have removed 2 of the PCI slot covers because it's a dual slot card. And just pop it in there, line it up nicely, and actually just make sure that it's nicely lined up with the PCI slot, and apply a reasonable amount of pressure to get it locked in. Here you are. Put your thumb screws back on to make sure that the graphics card is actually secure onto the... And now all I need to do is connect the 6-pin and the 8-pin and the 6-pin power supplies to the graphics card, and then we are done. Okay, now I have installed the graphics card. The power supply has been connected with this 8-pin and the 6-pin. All connections have been checked. It is a question of now powering the system with the graphics card, GPU in, and testing to see if it all pulses again. Everything is now plugged in. I'm ready to boot it up after all the cable cable management is complete. So here it goes. I've got a monitor hooked up that will show the on-screen prompts when this machine is switched on for the second time at least. So here goes nothing. Well, looks like it is on nonetheless. Okay, now I'm just going to wait for the BIOS screen to come up on the screen. Okay, so this is the BIOS screen. You can tell that the CPU's temperature, motherboard temperature, it registers the RAM. The speed is at 1333, which we'll have to do, select the XMP here to make it go to 1600 megahertz, and you can see that the 4 fans are connected to this assay. It tells you that all these fans are running. One of the fans actually is connected to the fan control because I didn't have enough header fan control. You can here set up the fan tuning for temperature whenever you want some of these fans to come on. So there's a fine tuning here. Here are my drives, 2 drives at the moment connected. The others are not on there. They are not connected. Here I'll have to just select my optical drive as the boot drive, and then eventually the SSD will hold my operating system. Thank you very much for watching. I really enjoyed doing this, building this PC. If anybody out there is thinking about doing this, it's very easy. This is one of the first PCs I've built. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. A lot of people have helped and guided me, friends, and I have been able to do this. So if I can do this, I can say anybody can do this. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.